Okay, so hello everyone. For those who don't know me, my name's Terry Humphreys. I'm from Curtin University and I'm the organiser of these Chemaraderie events. Yeah, let's kick off. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land which we're meeting on today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and I acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to acknowledge the sponsor of this event tonight, the Chem Centre. So they'll be, they're facilitating the food and drink that we'll be having after the event this evening. So tonight we've got Masuma Zaga from ECU joining us today. So it's fantastic to have someone from ECU giving a talk. It's been a little while. So she's going to be talking on advanced membranes for effective microplastic removal and enhanced anti-fouling in water treatment. She's a DECRA fellow, which is fantastic. We all know how hard these are to get. I think it's like 13% success rate, so well done for that one. She's also a chair of the ECU Early and Mid-Career Researcher Network. So she's advocacy for all the early and mid-career researchers at the university. Everyone needs a little bit of support. So as the name suggests for the talk, she focuses on water treatment and anti-fouling over many different areas. Because she's got a pretty big group now with 10 PhD students and research associates. So yeah, she's really building a path for herself. And as you can see from the list, she's been given a number of awards. She's got an ARC Discovery Project, been given the ECU Engineering Staff Excellence Award, and the ECU Vice Chancellor Fellowship. So yeah, please welcome Masuma to the stage.
So as Terry mentioned, I'm talking about micro and nanoplastics contamination and the advanced materials and membranes that we are targeting to tackle this issue basically. By the end of this presentation, you have a more general idea about the issue of micro and nanoplastics, how they affect our health and the environment, as well as how membranes can contribute to alleviate the issue. Terry gave the acknowledgement, so I passed this slide to save your time, but I'll acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are presenting today. So I start by giving an overall overview of what are micro and nanoplastics and how they are generated and how they are affecting us. So plastics are everywhere. They are cheap, durable, lightweight, and adaptable. That's why we humans produce over 350 million tons of them every year. From that, around 9 million tons ends up in the oceans. It's been estimated that by 2050, which is less than 30 years from now, we will have more plastics in the ocean than fish if we continue as we are, and that will be a huge tragedy. So we need to make some move in preventing this to happen. It takes any time from 500 to 5,000 years for plastic to fully break down. And the exposure of plastic materials to the wind, sunlight, and waves in the ocean gets them fragmented into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics and nanoplastics. So these can be ingested by marine creatures and then end up in our food chain through indirect ingestion, basically. Currently there is no efficient technique for complete removal of them, so we need to take action in that sense. So anybody knows how much microplastics we consume? I have the answer here. So we consume around 5 grams per week, which is around the weight of a credit card. So we consume them through breathing. Lots of them are. Have you looked at the air when the light is exposed to the air? You see lots of particles wandering around. They are microplastics. So we consume them through breathing. We consume them from food and from what we drink. So they have been found in beer, tap water, fresh water, seafood, in salt, honey, and many other products that we consume. Lots of them are in tea bags, basically. So So microplastics can, the issue of microplastics is not basically because of them by themselves. They have a very large surface area because of their small size. So, and they are hydrophobic. They can attract lots of contaminants to their surface. So basically, they can be a carrier for different contaminants, as well as having their own dangerous effects on the health of the environment as well as humans. And the other thing is that we know that plastics have been impregnated with lots of fillers and additives, like colorants, additives to make them transparent, like BPA, like DHP, that we will add them for flexibility. Lots of other additives are added to the plastics that are not chemically bonded to them. So when they are fragmented, those additives carry over to smaller pieces that are created from them. And because they are not chemically bonded, if they end up into our bodies, they can easily leach out of them. So lots of toxic materials as well as pathogens, contaminants that they attract from the environment. Just going deeper into their issue, the fragmented nanoplastics from these microplastics can even transfer to our blood system, to our lymphatic system, and be distributed throughout our body. So they have been found in different organs of humans and animals that have been tested. So as I mentioned, they can transfer and leach toxic chemicals. They can affect the development of lots of creatures and biota in the oceans and in the environment. They have been proven to contaminate soil. They have been proven to contaminate soil, and the crop productivity get affected by their presence. So in societies that are reliant on agriculture, it will have a financial effect as well. Surprisingly, human-accelerated climate change is also seeded by microplastics. Do you know why?
When they break down, they're going to release methane.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Microplastics, because of their very small size, can emit significant amount of greenhouse gases. Methane and ethylene are the most significant gases that are emitted from microplastics, and methane by itself is 21 times more potent than carbon dioxide that we normally accuse for global warming. So they can also disrupt carbon sequestration under the sea. So we know that seafloor is responsible for over 80% of the oxygen that we are breathing on Earth. So and it's done through small creatures called phytoplankton. So this is a body of a phytoplankton, and this is like a fiber that it's been ingested. So the studies have shown that the productivity and their lifetime of these creatures gets significantly affected by microplastics that they ingest. So these are the main creatures that contribute to carbon sequestration, carbon dioxide sequestration. Indirectly, again, microplastics are affecting the global warming. So studies have shown that wastewater treatment plants are one of the key pathways of microplastics into the oceans. Nearly 20% of microplastics that ends up into the oceans are coming from wastewater treatment plants, effluents. So wastewater treatment plants gets the feed through different manufacturing, textile industry, whatever we put in the washing machine, lots of fibers is coming out of that and goes to the wastewater system. Cosmetics, like exfoliators, lots of other cosmetic products have microplastics, we call them primary microplastics because they are made in that size for specific reasons. So these microplastics are also coming into the wastewater treatment plants. Tires, lots of microplastics coming from out of them in the roads, and then we have rainfall or a storm water. These end up into wastewater treatment plants as well. So studies have shown that wastewater treatment plants are not efficient in removing microplastics. They have lots of separation purification techniques within them, and many of them have membranes at the end that we expect to remove all microplastics. but that's not what's happening. Like, all studies have shown that in the effluent of wastewater treatment plants, we have lots of microplastics that have escaped from basically those treatment processes. So we need economic, energy efficient, and sustainable solutions, and we need to improve the efficiency of the existing processes. So here you can see the fibers are the majority of microplastics that have been detected in over 170 wastewater treatment plants globally. So it's a global issue. It's not due to like a specific site being inefficient in like removing them basically, and then fragments that come out of the fragmentation of the plastics and microplastics. And polypropylene and polyethylene, which are in the packaging materials, are the key materials of microplastics, and polyester is the next one, which is mostly in our garments and clothes and so on. And this is this figure shows different images that were taken from one of the wastewater treatment samples, and these are basically in the effluent that goes to the ocean or goes back to the underground we call it groundwater replenishment. So that water goes to the environment basically, and studies have shown that it contains lots of microplastics basically. So membrane technology has potential to be a game changer. So anybody knows here what is a membrane except my PhD students? No? Okay, so
It's a fine filtration.
yeah, they filter things. They remove unwanted things, basically. Okay? So, in the next few slides, I'll go through what are like membranes and how they can contribute to the this issue, like alleviating basically of this issue. Membranes are basically filter media that remove contaminants based on size exclusion, or through chemical potential difference, depending on the type of membrane, or through, like, we have membrane distillation that removes pure water through evaporation. So we have different types of membranes, but basically what they do is purification. So they purify the water that goes into them, basically. Or we have membranes for gas separation as well, gas purification, gas separation as well. So depending on the size of the membranes, we can have microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, reverse osmosis, and forward osmosis. The first four are pressure driven. So we need to apply pressure for the water molecules to pass through these semi-permeable membranes. But they repel unwanted materials, like microfiltration, like repel, for example, microorganisms. Ultrafiltration repel smaller proteins and so on. So each of them have different size of pore ranges, different pore size ranges, and based on the pore size range, they can repel different types of contaminants. And in many of the treatment facilities, we have a couple of them in sequence. So to remove the larger ones and then remove the smaller ones, and so on and so forth. So with the forward osmosis, the main removal mechanism is through electrochemical, through the chemical potential difference. So we know that if we have two solutions, like two salty solutions, one of them is more concentrated, the other one is less concentrated, the water goes from the less concentrated to the high concentrated to make equilibrium, all right? So we have this equilibrium. If we have membranes between these two, that only can pass water, so just water passes through. But if we don't have membrane, maybe that salt transfer between these. So what happens, we have semi-permeable membranes, basically. So assuming this is reverse osmosis, which is a pressure-driven process, we have a semi-permeable membrane here, we have a concentrated solution here, and we have a low concentrated water in here. We want to purify this one. This is our wastewater, assuming that this is our wastewater or this is our seawater that we want to purify. So we apply pressure to push water from this into the other side, so increasing the purified water concentration. But in the forward osmosis process, it's the natural osmotic pressure that drives the things through. So for the forward osmosis, we have wastewater on one side, and we have another contaminated, synthetic contaminated, basically, solution on the other side that we call draw solution. It's high in salt concentration, and through the natural osmotic process, the water from this wastewater, this is our wastewater, assume, this wastewater goes to the other side. So this one that we synthesize in that concentration gets more purified, and we can easily remove that specific salts from that. So it needs an additional separation step, basically. But because we don't apply pressure, so it's cheaper and more efficient, but it's in the infancy, basically, of the operation process. And with the, for example, reverse osmosis, because we apply pressure, the contaminants can get accumulated on the surface. So we will have a phenomenon that we call fouling. Fouling is the, like, basically accumulation of the contaminants on the surface or within the pores, surface pores of membranes, which significantly affect the permeability. So it reduces the water production, as well as it will reduce the lifetime of the membrane, because they accumulate and then they reduce efficiency. We have to clean the membrane. Lots of the time we use chemical materials, like chemical cleaning processes, or even very harsh mechanical cleaning processes that damage the membranes. And this is actually the main reason why these membranes are ineffective in the wastewater treatment plants, because they have a 5-year, for example, lifetime based on the books, but in reality they are out after 3 years, or they have lots of defects that these contaminants can pass through, basically. So in forward osmosis we have a looser layer because we don't apply any pressure. So we have less fouling and we have a cheaper process, basically. So what we did in our group, we started with the forward osmosis because it has more potential to be integrated in the actual, after the current filtration processes as an additional process. But what we want to do with those systems is to improve their efficiency. So how we improve their efficiency? We change the membrane surface functionalities to make them more water loving, so more water is permeating through them, and make them more resistant to fouling, basically. That one is through, like as I mentioned, surface functionalization or integration of advanced materials into the membranes. We have tested Zwitter ions, we have tested metal organic frameworks, different types of them, different composites of them. We have tested MXenes, and as I mentioned, nanocomposites of all these. And we have planned to test covalent organic frameworks, biological particles like aquaporin, which are like water channels in proteins in the actual human cells or animal cells that enhance the water filtration efficiency, and different types of monomers. Any questions up to this point? Oh. Okay, we continue. Just interrupt me if you have any questions. So what we want to achieve from these modifications, we want to make the membranes more hydrophilic. Do you know what is hydrophilicity? Yeah, that's right. Attract water, it loves water. So when you have more hydrophilic membranes, majority of contaminants are hydrophobic, basically. Even majority of microplastics are hydrophobic, so they don't like water. So if we make membranes more hydrophilic, the membrane, when it's in touch with water, the hydration layer is formed on the surface, very, very thin hydration layer, and this hydration layer repels those hydrophobic materials, basically. So if we increase the hydrophilicity, we basically increase the water-loving affinity as well as reduce the fouling tendency of the membrane, because the contaminants cannot attach to the surface, basically. And it will indirectly affect the lifetime because we don't have to do that much cleaning, basically. So anti-fouling, we want to increase the anti-fouling properties. This hydrophilicity improvement indirectly affects that. And we want to enhance the permeability, so we produce more water while we also reject unwanted contaminants and remove all the efficiency, overall efficiency of the process. How we do that? We change the functionality or surface charge of the membranes. For example, in the case of micro and nanoplastics, majority of them are negatively charged. So if we increase the negative charge of the surface through polymerization or through integration of negatively charged materials on the surface, so due to the electrostatic repulsion, they reject basically microplastics and negative charged repellent, but this is something that we need to carefully consider, because if we have positively charged contaminants, it will enhance their fouling. So we need to play around in terms of the feed solution that comes into contact with the membranes, basically. So we need to change the structure and morphology. We can play with the thickness of the membrane, we can play with the porosity of the membrane, and so on. We want the roughness to be less in terms of the fouling. Roughness, do you know what is roughness? So with roughness in terms of membranes, yeah, we have more region valleys and we have more surface area, basically. So if we have more surface area, we expect to have more contact, surface contact for water. So with higher roughness, we have better efficiency in terms of the water production, but we have lower fouling tendency, like anti-fouling tendency, because those foulants can easily get attached within the region valleys and then create aggravated fouling. The materials that we integrate can have photocatalytic activities, so we can make photocatalytic membranes, basically. So simultaneously, they remove as well as degrade plastic materials. And basically, this is our goal, to enhance the durability and resistance of the membranes to remove microplastics. So from this point, I moved to a couple of studies. I'll go short in them. I don't have presented all the characterizations, all the results, so it doesn't get boring. Still might get boring, sorry, because it's a couple of them that have used different types of materials, basically, to enhance the membrane efficiency. Sorry. So this is the first study that we did on microplastics. This is Mitra, one of my PhD students who has graduated. She's currently with PhD. What she did was she tested different sizes of microplastics. So, and what she was observing was that with the reduced size, we have more fouling on the surface because of the same phenomenon. When the particles are smaller, they have more surface area, they have more active groups, they can attach to the surface more easily. So we had more aggravated fouling in the case of smaller particles. And she also tested organic foulants together with the microplastics, like as a mixed foulant case, to see the synergistic effects of them with each other. So as you see here, so this is one of the microplastics, and these are organic foulants that have attached to this. Same phenomenon is happening for any contaminants that get in touch with microplastics in the environment. And she did organic fouling and organic and microplastics fouling tests. Sorry. So what happened, what you can see here, in the case of organic foulants alone, we have less dark materials on the surface, which are basically the foulants accumulation on the surface of the membrane. And in the case of like mixed foulant type, we see that microplastics have increased the accumulation of the contaminants on the surface. This was for forward osmosis, as I mentioned. So with forward osmosis, we expect that we can clean the membranes much easier. So after cleaning, we see that both of them have almost retrieved their properties, but it would be much worse after cycles with this case, because it needs to remove more foulants over the course of like many years if it's in the actual plant. So I brought this image here to show how plastics can get fragmented. So the left one is as you remember, with the forward osmosis process, I mentioned that we have a wastewater sample on one side and draw solution on the other side that draws water from this wastewater, and then we get that water easily from that draw solution. Okay, so in the wastewater sample, before we start, we got a sample, and then did SEM imaging. So these are the microplastics that are intact, haven't gone through the filtration, haven't gone through anything. So this is a synthetic sample, basically. And after 70 hours of filtration through the forward osmosis, you can see that these particles have been, so get another sample from the wastewater, because it's a recycle. That wastewater stays there, the other one gets more pure, basically, what happens with that. So she got another sample from the feed solution, and this is what she observed, that these particles just over 70 hours in a pump that is not very, it's not a hydraulic pump that press things and so on, so it's just a general centrifuge pump that doesn't put too much effects on the plastics, and it has degraded them to smaller pieces basically. And imagine in an actual water treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant, when they go through lots of pumping and then lots of connections and all those abrasion, stress situation, so these gates fragmented to many smaller pieces that are not normally even tested. So normally in wastewater treatment plants, the lower size that you see in the literature that they've gone through is 10 micrometer. Okay, so this can be, we have plenty of nanoplastics basically in that effluent that are not being tested. So here I brought some examples of how membranes are made to make it more sensible basically. With membranes, the R&D projects start with flat sheet membranes normally. So we develop flat sheet membranes, test them if they are efficient. They go to the commercial membrane fabrication sites, and then they get rolled into lots of sheets and then fit into modules. Or the same synthesis process is going to happen for the hollow fiber membranes. So they do spin coating and other stuff with the same procedure and create membranes in a module that look like spaghetti rolls, something like that. If you have a visit to wastewater treatment plants, they normally have samples of those membranes present there, but all of those membranes have started from a flat sheet, basically. So what we do is that we prepare solution of the basically polymer in a solvent of that polymer. The polymer is normally polysulfone or polyethyl sulfone. The solvent is normally dimethyl formamide or N-methylene pyrrolidone, NMP we call it. So they get mixed homogeneously, and then we use a casting knife to cast this solution on the surface of a fabric. And then it goes to, it's in a solvent, it's in an organic solvent. It goes to a water bath, and in that water bath, a phase inversion process happens. What happens is that the solvent comes out of the, that polymer solution, goes to the water goes and replaces that. So, this process makes that membrane precipitate on the surface of the, basically, it goes from liquid phase to a solid phase, and creating those membranes. So this is a polysulfone membrane that we call, we normally have them as ultrafiltration before any RO process to remove large contaminants. And then after this, we have a phase in, we have an interfacial polymerization process to convert these to reverse osmosis or forward osmosis membranes, which have higher separation efficiency, basically. What happens with this? We have two monomer solutions. One of them is in an organic phase, the other one is in an aqueous phase. So with these, we do the aqueous phase soaking of the membrane, and then get rid of that solution, try to make the membrane dry. It goes into all pores, so we have it still there. And then we do the organic phase pouring on the surface, soaking on the surface. And then, because aqueous and organic phase, everyone knows that are immiscible, they cannot mix together. So we have this formation of membrane only in the interface of those. So that layer that comes on the surface of this, which converts this to RO or forward osmosis, reverse osmosis, or forward osmosis with a high selectivity, that layer is around 200 nanometer, which is only occurring on the interface of those aqueous and organic phases, basically. So after this, we can test the membranes and see what is the efficiency. In terms of integration of different materials that I just presented, MOFs, like COFs, Zwitter ions, etc., we mix them in the aqueous solution normally, and then they get integrated into the structure of that layer. Sometimes we also mix them in this polymer solution to increase the pore size, to increase the like properties of the ultrafiltration layer, and synergistically they have better properties. In this case, that is presented here, this is also done by Mitra. So she made MIL 53 Fe based MOFs. These are hydrophilic and they have negative surface charge, so can enhance the efficiency of the membranes in terms of the hydrophilicity and like charge affinity. So as you can see here, this is the SEM image of a membrane before modification, pure membrane, when we didn't add any FMOFs. And this is after. You can see that this one shows large leaves, and this one shows like very small leaves. We call this nodular, and we call this leaf-like structure. And the AFM image, atomic force microscopy images, showed that the roughness decreased after modification. So as I mentioned, if we have less roughness, we have less fouling, all right? Because we don't have that active sites that contaminants get attached to, basically. After this, by comparing these two, and we have this contact angle is an indication of the hydrophilicity. So if we have a surface and we put a drop of liquid on that, the liquid, if that liquid, we want to see water affinity. So if that liquid is water, so if it goes into or spreads very widely, we say that that's hydrophilic. So and this angle from here, so it shows that how hydrophilic is that. If it's a large angle, it means that the drop is like that. All right, so it's hydrophobic. If it's a small angle, it means that it's spread, so it's hydrophilic. So if you see with this one on the bottom, we have more hydrophilic surface, which is also advantageous for antifouling properties against microplastics. As I mentioned, they are hydrophobic. So based on these results, I don't present the efficiency results, but they had higher water flux, lower reverse salt flux, and lower fouling tendency, which is advantageous for lifetime enhancement. So in this one, I go through studies that Javad has done. So he has added sulfur-betaine zwittar ions. Zwittar ions are materials that have both negative and positive charges, so they have more balanced charge, but they are highly hydrophilic. So if we add them to membranes, they have been known to increase the hydrophilicity significantly, and thereby they will enhance the efficiency of them against fouling, as well as enhancing the permeability. So here again, normally after modification we have nodular type membranes, and the surface roughness data, it looks very similar, but the data showed that it was less rough, which is advantageous. The performance data is shown for 0.25% of zwittar ions in the FO membrane and 1.25 zwittar ions in the FO membrane again, and plain membrane. We can see that water flux increased, which is advantageous. Reverse salt flux decreased. Reverse salt flux is the back diffusion of the salts to the feed. We don't want it. It happens when we have the defective membrane, or when the membrane properties in terms of hydrophilicity, hydrophobicity are not advantageous. So the reverse salt flux is also decreased, the flux increased, so it shows that zwittar ionic materials have significantly improved the efficiency of the membrane. The fouling data with microplastics showed that, if you see for the pure membrane, we have less, we have initially less flux. As I mentioned, for FO membranes, we can recover a majority of the flux. But with the two modified membranes, both of them recovered, and initial flux are higher compared to the original membranes. So, as I mentioned, we had lower roughness, higher hydrophilicity. Both of them in combined are effective in enhancing the water production as well as fouling minimization. This was a mixed fouling of BSA and microplastics were tested. This one is the plain membrane without any modification. As you see, after 1 hour, it starts to decline in terms of the efficiency, water flux. This one is the sample with the highest concentration of zwitter ions, normally we have a threshold above which we have like deterioration of the properties because of the agglomeration of the materials that have been put into the structure of that sample. But with the medium range of the concentration, we can see that we don't have the loss of permeability. Basically, we have more stable flux over time, which is highly advantageous in terms of the durability of the membranes. And in here, we, like Jawad has identified, like 1.25% is the best concentration of adding zwitter ions in terms of the lowest reverse salt flux and highest water flux. So another study by Mitra. So in here, she used UiO66 NH2 MOFs. These are zirconium-based MOFs. Zirconium is less toxic than cobalt, chromium, and other types of materials that are being used for MOFs. This MOF is highly water stable compared to the other MOFs. Many of the MOFs have water stability issue, so when they encounter with water, they degrade. So basically, if they degrade, they will reduce the efficiency of the membranes. So she used this NH2 to functionalize UiO66 because NH2 is the same functional group as in the MPD, M-phenylenediamine, that we used for interfacial polymerization of the selective layer. So it can easily chemically interact with the 3-methyl chloride, the other monomer that was in the organic phase. As you remember, we had an organic phase monomer and an aqueous phase monomer that were in touch and do a very thin layer formation on the surface of polysulfone. With that, this NH2 is the same functional group as one of the monomers, so it can chemically bond during the membrane formation process. So basically in here, Mitra has done double modification. So she has done multi-walled carbon nanotubes in addition to UiO66. So in this case, she did in situ formation, so adding multi-walled carbon nanotubes into the autoclave together with the precursors of this MOF, and then creating like this composite structure. In this one, the same zwitter ions that Jawad were used were added on the surface of these MOFs through like radical polymerization, basically, and then these were also compared in terms of the efficiency. So these are the TEM images of the particles here. We use dry samples, so they are aggregated, but in the solutions, they were not disaggregated, confirmed by dynamic light scattering. But it clearly shows the formation, basically, and then the integration, for example, of the carbon nanotubes and MOFs together. The other characterization results like XRD, FTIR, we did all of them, but I haven't put here to, I'm mostly focusing on the efficiency improvements rather than the actual. But all of those confirmed the complete successful formation of the materials, basically, and the successful integration and functionalization and so on. So in here, again, the control and the 3 different types of membranes in their optimized concentration of integration of these materials are presented. As you can see, the surface features have changed after addition of different materials. And in here, the performance results in terms of flux improvement, reverse salt flux that we mentioned that it's the back diffusion. We don't want that, so it should be minimum. And then reverse salt flux to flux. So if this is the lowest amount, this is the best case. We have higher flux and lower reverse salt flux in that case, which was observed in this case, zwitter ions. And the next one also, the next double modification also showed higher performance compared to the other 2 cases of single modification and controlled TFC. And overall, with the integration of these materials, we could get better performance and anti-fouling properties as well. So in this one that Muhaddasa, who is here as well, so she did this one this is a different approach. Until now, we were adding materials as nanofillers into the structure. In this case, Muhaddasa did graft polymerization, plasma-induced graft polymerization. Anyone is familiar with this technique? So with the plasma-induced graft polymerization, we use plasma to activate the surface first. So in this case, she added carboxylic acid functional groups to the surface. And then after that, through those active sites that have been generated through plasma, she adds enough monomers, do radical polymerization, and the polymers are grafted on the surface, basically like this. Lots of these on the surface, assume that. So with this case, with this polymer that she chose, it has, it is highly hydrophilic and it has negative surface charges, which are both advantages in terms of repelling micro and nanoplastics. As I mentioned, they are negative charge, so we want same charge to repel them, and we want hydrophilic. We always want hydrophilic in terms of membranes. And she did several different material testing. In this one, we haven't presented all of the data, but this is basically the reactor that, she adds this activated membrane into this under nitrogen and add these monomers and then grafts, basically. If you have any questions, ask after that. So characterization and performance of the optimized VS control membranes in that test. So only the optimum sample is presented here. As I mentioned, we want the contact angle to be lower, which is indicative of the more hydrophilic surface, am I right? So with the membrane, surface modified membrane, we have a lower contact angle, so we have a higher affinity towards rejecting, basically, contaminants. This is a streaming potential data through an Anton-Pour streaming potential analyzer. Over a wide range of pH, we do surface charge analysis on the surface of the membranes. As I mentioned, surface charge plays an important part in reducing fouling. As you can see, the modified membranes have lower, more negative surface charge, which is, again, advantageous for repelling negatively charged microplastics. And in this case, you see that the fouling data, so the neat membrane, after a while, it starts to decrease in terms of the water production, but the modified membrane stays almost stable in that sense, so it's advantageous to its durability and long-term operation. And with the water flux, again, modified membrane performed much better. Not much better, but better, basically. So we are getting to end. So, integrated coagulation, flocculation, dissolved exportation. So basically, we can use hybrid systems to target microplastics as well. As I mentioned, in wastewater treatment plants, we have plenty of filtration separation processes. So if we target a hybrid process, we can easily remove materials like unwanted materials. So this is I go to this slide. This is by Nimesha. Nimesha is here too. So this is a jar tester that she used for preparing samples, adding microplastic solutions, coagulants, flocculants, etc. This is a dissolved air flotation saturator. So what it does, it injects microbubbles into the solution. So by these microbubbles, we expect that they bring the contaminants up, especially the ones that have low buoyancy, so they go up. With microplastics, we have a very wide range of densities, especially with microfibers. Sometimes, depending on their density, again, it's advantageous to bring them up rather than waiting for a long time for them to precipitate or something like that. So she used different coagulants, and these are like from the cleaning clothes, so she just extracted these from them as a fibers, and then we use high-speed camera to take hundreds of images to see how this production evolves in terms of the microbubbles and microplastics, if they can bring them up, if they can't, and so on. Sorry. So in here, as I mentioned, we do coagulation. With coagulation, we add some coagulants. These coagulants bring the materials together, make flux, basically. And we have flocculants to help them to the formation of flux as well. So what she has done is that she has in the jar tester, so she has the sample, she has the microfibers, she has the simulated wastewater, and she adds two different types of coagulants, aluminum chloride, hexahydrate, and chitosan. So this is the most common coagulant used in wastewater treatment plants, and chitosan is a green-based material that we want to enhance its efficiency to replace basically those chemical materials that are being added in large quantities. So she adds flocculants in some cases as well, adjusts the pH, and test the microfibers in terms of sedimentation and dissolved air flotation and so on. And for each of them, the removal efficiency is identified. She developed a very simple technique, which ended up working in terms of identifying how much microplastics have stayed in each layer, like on the bottom, on the top, etc., which is called residual turbidity measurement based on the turbidity change. So she does the turbidity of the samples, which has surfactants and other stuff, and the one which has microplastics as well, and like subtract them and then get basically the difference in terms of how much microplastics are remained in that solution. And the zetopotential scanning electron microscopy measurements and so on to identify like the microplastic removal through DAF, sedimentation, flotation, and the combination of those. And in short, what we do is that we improve the surface properties of the membranes by integrating nanomaterials into the structure. For example, you see a TM image here. This is the thin layer that I was talking about. This is around 200 nanometer. So these are particles, these same particles that have been integrated into the surface. This is from my PhD, very long time ago, but I just wanted to represent how these are integrated into the membrane, basically. This is one of the filtration systems that we use for reverse osmosis, and the outcomes of what we do basically in improving the separation efficiency towards macro and nanoplastics, minimize microplastic fouling, improve the water production and membrane lifetime, which are very interconnected to each other. And the benefit would be macro and nanoplastic resistance systems, cleaner water, safer environment, and healthier communities. So sustainability is the key. We need to take action. We need to work together to minimize the exposure of the environment to these microplastics. Basically, modified membranes are one of the approaches that we can use for targeting wastewater treatment plant effluents, but many of the plastics are going to the environment through different channels, so we need to be proactive in reducing our use of single-use plastics and so on, to help the environment and future generations, basically. And R&D projects can be a game changer, especially in the field of membranes. As I mentioned, membranes are already commercial. In majority of wastewater treatment plants, you have membranes. So if we increase the efficiency of the membranes, and then they can be easily integrated into existing systems, so by just changing the modules, basically. And sustainability is the key. Let's make it happen together. And lastly, I would like to thank my key collaborators on microplastic research and the lovely PhD students that I'm working with, and Australian Research Council for their support, Edith University and the School of Engineering for support, AMP Foundation for their support, as well as Berkeley community for inviting me, and everyone here for your participation and attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming along and talking.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't expect that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks everyone for coming.